Hey everybody, welcome to another tutorial by Addicted Fishing. I'm Jordan Knigge. Today we're out here on the river and we're talking some of the basic techniques and the importance of line management while we're float fishing for salmon and steelhead. So probably the most important part of good line management while you're float fishing for salmon and steelhead is going to be the kind of line that you're using. There's been big evolutions in braided line these days in the Northwest and in this fishery. So what we always want, what we always want is a braided line of some sort. I like to use high vis because it's easy to see out there and you can really tell where you're fishing as it's going down the river, especially below you. The braided line is very important because it floats. And floating line is going to help us because we're able to mend and manage our line without inflicting the current speed or the float of our drift going down into the zone of the fish. I have 30-pound P-line Teflon coated braided on here, and I really like the Teflon coated because it resists that water, and when you go to mend and go to manage your line as it floats down, it doesn't inflict the drift of your float at all. So to get a proper drift when you're float fishing like this and to make a proper mend, it's all about timing. Okay, what I like to tell people is if they're mending more than 2 to 3 times in a drift, they're doing it too much. And why that is because every time that you pull against your line to use a mend, it's gonna pull your gear up off of the bottom. So the least times that you do that, the better, because it's gonna keep you down in the strike zone longer. Where I always like to mend is, of course, you cast to 45 to start, you mend about the first 20 feet of the drift, and I'll show you that as we go through here. My first mend is gonna happen about 5 seconds into the drift. It's gonna hit the water, I'm gonna let that belly get created so I have something to work with, then I'm gonna slowly lift that line up and off the water. Again, keeping your rod tip straight up. We have a 10.5-foot rod for a reason, and that's to keep least amount of line on the water at a time. So as it's going down here, you see I've already mended once. I'm starting to gain a little belly. I'm gonna grab my line, make another mend, and then from here on out, I'm set. I can have a belly, I can have a little bit of slack in my line because I have that direct point of contact and my bobber is still going at the same speed of the river. So as it goes down to the end there, don't need to mend anymore because I have a straight line to that bobber and I'm gonna reel that back in. There's 2 different kinds of mends. There's an upriver mend and a downriver mend. In this situation, we're always going to use an upriver mend because we have a steady current all the way across in front of us. We'll show you later in this tutorial how to use a downriver mend, which is going to be in more of a deep pooly hole with a back eddy. So you need to keep your line up and away from the water and downriver mend. So this mend, if you're in a tail out or you're in a fast riffle, is always going to be upriver. So as we do that here one more time, we'll give you another quick demonstration. We're gonna go upriver at 45. I'm gonna, again, let that belly get created for about the first 5 seconds. I'm gonna reel up, slowly lift my line and lay it right back down. You see, I'm ready to fish. I can open that bail, I can start dumping line out through my tip, and right about, again, 3/4 of the way through the drift, I'm gonna grab that line, I'm gonna lift, and I'm gonna do a slow mend, nice and easy, and now I'm gonna let it do its thing. From here on out, there's no more mending. So you guys can see why it is not crucial to mend every 5 seconds. It's all about the timing of your mend. So if you mend early in your drift and you mend 3/4 of the way through, you can really extend the time that you're fishing through that run with that timing of that mend. So the next piece of mending that we're gonna talk about here is probably one of the more important styles of mending, and that is a downriver mend. A downriver mend is always gonna be imperative if you have an inside water current that's different than the outside water current that you're casting towards. So here is a hole that is a prime example of a place you need to use a downriver mend. Why we're going to do that is because the current on the inside is slower than the current where we're fishing. So you need to be able to pick the line up and put it downriver of the bobber so that your bobber floats into your line presentation. And why that is so that you're not getting the drag from 2 opposite currents going 2 opposite ways and inflicting your float to where it pulls your gear right up off of the bottom of the river. So what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna show you how to make a downriver mend and why, and I'm gonna cast out and how you demonstrate how you guys are gonna do this. So got my worm here and my float, I'm gonna cast up into the current, and immediately you're gonna see how my line wants to catch in that slow stagnant current and pull upriver. So what I'm gonna do to counteract that, I'm gonna lift up and I'm gonna put the line below the bobber. Again, leaving only about 10 to 20 feet on the line at all times. You see how that line is kind of creating that bow downriver of the bobber. There it goes right into the seam, and we go right back and let it fish. If we would have not mended on that cast and let the line grab the current, it would have pulled our worm right up off the bottom of the river and not been down into the strike zone. So I'll do that. I'll do it wrong here quickly for you. I'm gonna leave that right there in that, and you see automatically how my line is actually pulling upriver, and here in just a second it's going to start pulling against that bobber. So if I mended upriver more, it would inflict the bobber even more while dragging it into the slow current. So what I want to do here to counteract that, lift that line up, mend down below the bobber, and let that bobber float into your line. And all that's going to do is keep your stuff floating straight up and down and or dragging along the bottom, and it's going to allow you to set the hook and be right on top of those fish when they finally bite. Well, we hope this video helped you guys learn a little bit about mending your line and line management while float fishing for salmon and steelhead. It's probably one of the most important parts of float fishing is knowing how to utilize your line and use that floating line in the correct manner to always have a really fishy presentation towards these salmon and steelhead. So stay tuned, you guys. We have a lot more videos coming out. We'll see you out there on the river. All right, addicts, thank you so much for all your support on these videos. Be sure to come down here and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to see more, get these alerts popping up so you can see all the good stuff we have coming out every day that helps you guys get out and enjoy this beautiful bounty that we have that is salmon and steelhead. Like and share this page out there so that the rest of the world can see it. Stay fishy, and we'll see you guys out there on the river.